All right, everyone is starting to come in now. All right, we're going to wait for everybody to get in here real quick, and then we'll get started. We've got a few more showing up here, so again, we'll just give it a couple more minutes, or a couple more seconds. I'm not going to wait a couple minutes, but okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Just a brief introduction here. My name is Dave Hatton. We want to thank you all for joining us today for the organization correlation. I'm a financial consultant with First Midwest Financial Network. The products we talk about are not FDIC insured, not deposits to bank, not guaranteed by the bank, and subject to investment risk. Having said that, we're not going to talk about any products today. When you hear when you talk to financial advisors, typically you think of somebody who is helping you manage your money. We're going to take, and that's what we do for the most part. But my assistants, Jamie, Andrea, and I, we try to take it to a little bit of a different level, and we look at a more of a holistic approach when we talk to our clients and work with our clients. And we try to build a relationship, and not just a relationship with the client, but we also look at the relationship between the client and their money. And as such, it's kind of, I'll put it this way: how many of you, when you come home from work during the day, or you get home and you have a special place to put your keys, and you know where those keys are at, and the time that you don't put them there, it seems like is when you need them the most, when you're trying to find them. And you get distracted. You're trying to get out of the house real quick. They weren't where you always put them. Life is like that, and your finances are like that as well. And so what we're going to talk about today is a way that you can put your finances in order, not so much your investments themselves, but the rest of your financial life. Get that organized so you're in a position so that you can do the rest of the things that you want to do more worry-free. We're joined today by a longtime friend and colleague, Bill Feeks from New York Life, and I'm gonna let Bill take it away from here. Go ahead, sir.
Great, thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. Hopefully, you can hear me okay. So today, I'd like to welcome everyone to our presentation. Our presentation is on the benefits of being organized, and as Dave said, the organization correlation, but the benefits of being organized, both in your personal and your financial lives. And so we're going to talk about the importance of consulting with your financial team of professionals. And we'll talk a little bit more in depth about this later, but really I think that Dave is the key factor here in your financial team. And we'll sort of end our discussion today with talking about customizing your own financial plan, okay, your own financial plan. So like all great presentations, let's start off with a question, okay? It's not a pop quiz though. So how many items does the average American lose each day? How many items does the average American lose each day? Is it one item? Maybe 3 items a day? 5 items a day? Or is it 9? Couldn't be 9 items a day, but it actually is. The average person actually loses 9 items per day. You know, a few years ago, I was doing this presentation and one of the participants stood up and he said, well, if the average is 9 items a day, then I must be significantly above average. Okay. Look, I think that free time is something that we all value a lot. But free time is hard to come by. So many of us are juggling home, work, community, so many different things. You know, the world has really changed for most of us, but really just trying to get a handle on our free time. So organization is an essential skill, something that we all need and to get better at. Organization can help us to save time, okay? It can help us to gain control over our schedule by helping to locate items faster. This can give us more free time to spend with our friends and our family. This can also help us to organize our time to prevent procrastination, okay? But most importantly, a clutter-free, organized home is easier to keep clean, So as Dave mentioned earlier, we all have had this feeling where you're running late for an appointment, you got to get the kids to soccer or to school, or you're running late for work, and you just can't find the car keys, right? So we've all ran into that. And what does that do? That disorganization really creates stress in our lives. And it also creates all this clutter that we have being disorganized. This causes brain overload. If you think about it, if we're trying to remember where we put everything, we don't have a place for our stuff. We're just trying to remember where we put everything. Our short-term memory really gets maxed out. And this causes stress and anxiety inside of our lives. This disorganization can also cause conflicts with those that we live with and those that we love, right? We probably have all had some kind of an argument or disagreement about trying to find some item that we've misplaced. And then chronic disarray, if this really becomes a problem, it can really drain our energy. So disorganization is actually a form of procrastination, and it can really zap our energy away from us. So being disorganized, how does being organized, let's say, how does that help us to improve business productivity? We'll talk about business productivity for a moment here. Now, there's a study that was done a few years ago, and this was the survey of 18,000 business leaders. Showed about 57% of the respondents said that they lose an average of 6 hours per week due to disorganization. So let's consider this disorganized employee who makes maybe $50,000 a year. The annual cost of their company is probably going to be in the $11,000 per year lost time due to this disorganization. Now, this is just one employee. Imagine the impact across the entire enterprise, the entire organization. Look, we know that personal organization has many, many benefits. We've talked about stress reduction. We've talked about time management, how it can lead to being much more productive in our business. But really, what are the effects of organization on our finances? And that's kind of what we're here to talk about today, is the effects of organization on our finances. When it comes to our finances, sometimes we just scramble to try to find what we need. And I think now is the perfect time to talk about this, because we're all going through this phase right now, and it's called tax season, right? We're all going through this part of trying to find everything we need to file our taxes. And maybe you itemize, so you're looking for a bunch of receipts that you accumulated through the year, or maybe you're trying to find the W-2s and the mortgage interest deductions and the 1099 dividend interest and all these different forms. If we knew where all these things were at, we'd have a lot less stress, and taxes might be a little bit easier. No one likes doing taxes. Nobody likes paying taxes. But if we can be a little bit more organized, it can make the process a little bit less painful. So there's a survey that's done every year by one of the big accounting firms, Price Waterhouse, and you can see that down here at the bottom. So they do this every year. The results in 2016 were that 52% of the respondents said that they were stressed about their finances. And in 2019, just 3 years later, from 16 to 19, that increased from 52% all the way up to 59%. That was a 7% increase in just 3 years. Now, we don't have the 2020 numbers yet, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that the stress levels around finances probably increased above 60% last year because of what's been going on for all of us. So our finances and stress, a lot associated with that. Anything that we can do to lower that stress level is probably a good thing. So staying financially organized can help us to avoid wasting money on late fees, right? The more frequently we pay our bills and track our purchases, the more likely we are to kind of stay on top of our money and stay within our budget, stay within our spending, right? If you get organized and you stay organized, you're much more likely to think ahead and plan for the future. And that really is the crux of what we're talking about here today. Get organized, stay organized, and this is going to help you to plan for the future and realize the goals that you really want to accomplish, okay? So if you look at this picture, you might recognize this guy, Alan Alexander Milne, or A.A. Milne. We probably know him best as the author of Winnie the Pooh, okay, Winnie the Pooh. But this was a quote of his. He said that one of the advantages of being disorganized is that one is always having surprising discoveries. And I would say that's true, but probably not the way that Milne was really thinking. We've all heard the stories about the family member who passed away suddenly, and all of their documents were in disarray, right? They're just all over the place. And the family is really searching frantically to try to recover what is out there, okay? So it's important for you to know where your documents are, definitely important for you to know, but it's even more important that your loved ones know where they can locate all these documents, okay? Very, very important. So most of us typically don't discuss the locations of all of our important documents, not with our parents, not with our children. Most of us don't even do it with our own spouses, okay? When we start thinking about money-related items, this causes stress. And so we tend to avoid those types of conversations. I'm here to say we need to have these types of conversations. If we're gonna relieve some of this stress, we need to really engage in these conversations. And Dave is really the guy that's gonna help you to begin to have those conversations. So it's true that we need to know where your documents are located at, but also you may be responsible either today or in the future for a family member. Maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a sibling with special needs, or maybe it's an adult child that you may become responsible for, or you're currently responsible for, and we need to know where their documents are as well. This is going to help us to take care of them, provide the care that they need, but also if they pass away, it's going to help us to settle their affairs. Again, Dave can help to facilitate these conversations with other family members, begin this dialogue. And I think that that's really, really important function of what Dave does, okay? So let's talk about, for a moment, life events. What is a life event? Life events are things that happen in our lives, right? People get married, they get divorced, they buy a house, they sell a house, they start a business, they sell a business, they start a new job, they retire. All these different things happen in our lives. Now, on average, an adult American will experience one life event per year, but people in their 50s will experience two. Why people in their 50s? Because at that point, they're generally engaged by taking care of their parents, or maybe still having adult or children at home, or even helping adult children out. So people in their 50s are experiencing two of these. So as time goes by, 10, 15, 20 years, one life event, two life events every year, you can see that we begin to really build up a tremendous amount of paperwork that we have to keep track of, right? And that's why it's so important to get organized and to stay organized. So what we've done at New York Life is we've developed this tool. And I was trying to think exactly when we developed this. I think it was in around 2008. So it's been probably close to 18 years ago that we actually developed this tool. It's called the Lifefolio checklist. And it's a simple little bifold, and it's just a place for your stuff. We can call this the table of contents for your important documents. Over the years, we've given out, I haven't seen the actual number of what we've actually given out for probably 8 or 9 years, but back then we had given out over 250,000 of them. So I'm going to guess that number is probably approaching, close to 1 million. I don't know. I'm speculating now, but we've given a lot of these things out over the years. Again, this is a table of contents for your important documents that you may have accumulated during your lifetime. We would believe that this is really the definitive list, if you will, for the most important documents. Now, this has been reviewed by other financial professionals like Dave, by attorneys, by accountants all over the country. And we get this consistent feedback. They tell us that this is one of the most comprehensive lists of important documents, and it really is a critical tool to help people to get organized and to stay organized, okay? So we're going to go ahead and take a look at at the Lifefolio checklist, the first thing that we see, and it's not on the screen, but the very first thing that we see is who's on your team, who's on your, or the financial professionals that are on your team. The very first person listed is your financial advisor. That's Dave Hatton, right? So that's the first name, his contact information. In the event something happens to you, the executor needs to reach in and identify who's on the team. They can call Dave first, and he can start to contact the other people along with your executor or your durable power of attorney. We'll talk about that a little bit, but this is really an opportunity to identify who else is on the team, and then we begin to look at important papers, emergency papers. And I won't go over all these, but we'll begin with, say, the birth certificate, the marriage certificate. These are two important pieces of information, two important documents. Why are they so important? Well, I don't know if you've ever changed health insurance companies as of late, but if you do, you have to, and you're covering a family, you have to, one, prove that you're married, so you need a marriage certificate. And two, if you have children that you're going to be covering under that health plan, you also have to prove that they are in fact your children. So a copy of the birth certificate, a copy of the marriage certificate are very important. Another reason why it's very important to have a copy of the marriage certificate is for survivor pension benefits. Maybe there's a married couple and maybe he had a pension, but he passed away. And now in order for her to continue on the survivor benefits, they have to prove that they were married. Now this certificate, marriage certificate, may be on file with the pension administrator. Most of the time it is not. And so we need this document to present to the administrator so that that pension can continue on for the surviving spouse. Again, being organized is very, very important, okay? We'll look here at another list of items from the Lifefolio checklist. Here we're looking at the company retirement plan from all employers. And there was a study that was done, well, I think it's done quite often, but from 2017 from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, so the Labor Department basically, did this study, and they said that the average American would have about 12 jobs in their lifetime. Can you imagine having can you imagine having 12 401ks all over the place, trying to keep track of all that? You might want to talk about consolidating some of that, but that's another story. But really identifying where it is, what it is, and that's what Lifefolio is going to be able to help you to do, is what it is and where it is, okay? We don't like to think about emergencies, but emergencies certainly do happen. And the more that we can be prepared, at least having our documents located where we can put our hands on them at a moment's notice, that's very important. That can help to ease some of the stress in our emergencies that we encounter. So knowing where our documents to help us to settle debts, transfer ownerships, last will and testament, all these types of documents, durable powers of attorney, a number of different things that you can place your hands on in the event of an emergency. Very, very important. Again, not just for you, but if you're going to be caring for someone either today or into the future, knowing where their documents are also very, very important. Also, if we know where everything is, this is going to help us to settle estates. I don't know if you've ever been an executor or an executrix, depending, but knowing where the living will, durable powers of attorney for financial and health affairs, knowing where this documentation is very, very important. And I'm going to stop for just a moment here and talk about having a durable power of attorney for financial and health affairs. If you and your spouse don't currently have this in place, I'm going to strongly recommend that you have a conversation with Dave about the importance of this in your lives. And if you don't have an attorney, maybe he can point you in the direction of one. If you do have an attorney, sit down and talk to them about drawing up a durable power of attorney for financial and health affairs. Very, very important that you have that in place. But then after you get it in place for you and for your spouse, then let's think about the parents. Now, I don't know your particular situations, but think about your parents. Are you the durable power of attorney for your parents, or is that one of your siblings? What's the family dynamic right there? What about your adult children? Do they have a durable power of attorney in place for financial and health affairs? If they don't, talk to them about doing that. Again, Dave is a great facilitator of this type of a conversation, bringing in family members, helping to have that conversation. So very, very important. Another item that we would talk about in emergency papers is the last will and testament. Okay, the last will and testament. We should probably, it's not a good practice to keep that last will and testament inside of the safety deposit box because in many states, at the death of the owner of the safety deposit box, the box is actually sealed. And the will, most of the time, says who has access to the box. Well, if it's in the box, it's hard to see who has access to it. So wills should be kept either in a lawyer's will safe or in a fireproof safe at home, maybe. So alternative storage there is recommended. Now let's talk about creating a customized filing system, and we talk about this a lot here. One thing that we might recommend is getting some type of a fireproof safe, ideally, a filing cabinet that you can put your files in, knowing that in extreme heat, even fireproof safes aren't going to be a complete protection from that kind of damage. So those really irreplaceable documents should probably still go inside of a bank box, okay? So when you're filling out your filing system, we have spent a lot of time on this, as I mentioned, and so we have a system of doing that. The first file that we would look at is the Lifefolio checklist. Again, this is the table of contents. If you open up the book, the table of contents is at the front. That's the same thing that we're doing here. File Lifefolio checklist, that's our table of contents. We want to know what we have and where is it located. Behind that is the emergency items, the emergency papers, emergency contacts. That's the most readily available file where we can just reach in and grab it and go to the emergency and react to it. And then you can just see the different categories. We won't talk about all these, but the different categories. And as you get all of these papers as they come in and documents and statements, you actually have a place to put them, and you have a much better handle on staying organized, getting organized, staying organized, if you have a nice filing system in place, okay? So once you're organized, but are you really updated? So we get you organized, but are you really updated? One question that we often ask is a question of life insurance. Again, we're not talking about product here, but life insurance is really protection against risk. And so that's something that a risk conversation to have. So talk about life insurance if that's something that you need. And then what needs to be updated, okay? We know where your will is located. We know where the beneficiary designations are located, but are they updated? And do we need to update them? Wills should be updated every time a child is born, or maybe even a grandchild is born. Beneficiary designations, make sure that these are continually up to date. Financial strategies, has anything changed in your goals for your financial strategy? What about investments and risk tolerance? Has anything changed there? Again, maybe that needs to be updated. Does your spouse or executor know where to find these important documents? Okay, important that someone else knows where they're located so they can put their hands on them. And then, of course, we want to seek out the trusted professionals to help resolve these issues. At the center of your financial team is always you. You are always at the center of your financial team. And right up here, the investment professional, the financial planning professional, I would say that's Dave Hatton, for everybody on the call today. So what Dave can do is he can help coordinate with the attorney, with your property and casualty or your health insurance agent, any company benefits you have. either as a retiree or if you're currently employed with a company, helping to coordinate those benefits. Any self-directed assets you might have a TD Ameritrade account or something like that. And then of course your tax counsel, your CPA, or your tax attorney. So Dave can really be instrumental in helping to coordinate this and how it all fits into your overall financial plan. So I would say that Dave is more like a financial quarterback, okay? And Dave can do a lot of different things. Financial advisors can do a lot of different things: comprehensive financial planning, overall asset allocation planning. You know, think about this. If you were one of those guys that had 12 different jobs and 12 different 401ks, you got the money over here, you got the money over here. But how do those things work together in trying to accomplish your goals? So having an overall asset allocation plan, very important. Maybe you have specific goals on estate planning, college or retirement planning, professional portfolio management, looking at individual securities, and looking for some advice there. Assistance in reducing tax liability. We're not giving tax advice here, but what are the implications? What are the tax implications of certain investments? Very important part of the overall plan. And then we talked briefly about insurance and annuities as really risk management tools. We all face risk. And when it comes to risk, you can really only do two things. You can retain the risk or you can transfer the risk. Retaining the risk means you retain the risk of things that can happen, but you also retain the assets. But you can also transfer some of that risk. That's what we do with car insurance or home insurance. We transfer some of that risk to the insurance company so that if we're in an accident, we're not completely liable for the entire piece. The insurance company can help to manage some of that risk for us. So do you have a will? What is a will, actually? It helps us to describe the asset distribution after somebody has passed away. So this is really the instructions of who you want to get the money. You worked an entire lifetime to accumulate what you've accumulated, and you want to make sure it goes to the people that you feel would most benefit from that. This is going to help give you a peace of mind for estate distribution. So it's going to go to who you, again, want it to go to. Now, this is an important point to make here. If you should pass away without a valid will, the court may decide who will be the guardian of your minor children. But also, this is a conversation that you might have with your adult children if you have grandchildren. Do they have an updated will in place, naming a guardian in the event that something happens to them? Okay, so also a very important conversation to have. And then lastly, keeping this information, this will, accessible for your executor, so your executor can put their hands on it. So look, we've consulted with the financial team and we have all the updates in place. So what's next? What's next? Next is to design a customized plan for your future. The first thing that you want to do is schedule some time with Dave, right? The quarterback of your team, and come in with a list of your assets, your bank and investment accounts, your retirement accounts, your insurance and annuity documents, all of your assets. And then we also need a list of your liabilities, mortgages, credit cards, any liabilities that you have. Also bring in a copy of this year's federal tax return, but maybe last year's return for you and your spouse as well. Get an idea of that tax liability. And then we want to talk about a list of your goals and a time frame for achieving those. Is one of your goals to send the kids to college? Or maybe you've already sent your kids to college and you want to help the grandkids now go to college. You'd like to retire at a certain age. Or maybe you're currently supporting or providing some type of support for a loved one, a parent, a special needs sibling, an adult child, and that's maybe either today or into the future. So these are also important conversations, goals to have when you come in and talk about your overall financial strategy with Dave. So you're going to work with Dave to help customize this overall investment plan, how this plan can help you to achieve your goals, your dreams, your concerns, address any concerns you may have, and help you to create this overall asset allocation strategy that may help you to realize those goals. So the Lifefolio System, what's it going to help you to do? It's going to help you to organize your life, regain organizational control. You know where everything is. You don't waste a lot of time. You have more free time to spend with those family members that you want to spend time with. Then we want to consult our financial team to help coordinate all the aspects of our financial life again, and then obtain the ultimate financial organization, a customized financial plan. At this point, we're going to open it up for questions. I'd like to thank everyone for their time. The next slide I'm going to bring up is Dave's picture. You all know what Dave looks like, I think, but this is his contact information. And we're going to open it up now to questions either for Dave or for myself. So Dave, you want to join me?
I will when I can unmute there, Bill.
Yes, sir.
And while I'm waiting on some to come through here, while we're waiting on them, I'm just going to point out a couple of things here real quick. First of all, Bill, you mentioned the Lifefolio system and a couple of times through here. And it's we actually did this presentation, as you recall, a number of years ago.
Yes.
And, it went over very well. I can tell you right now that none of the folks that we have on the call today were present during that presentation. I still have I think I got probably close to 100 of those Lifefolio systems for that meeting, and I've given some out over the years. I still have probably a couple dozen left. If anybody's interested in using those, the system itself is not as important. Your filing system is not as important. One of the things I'd point out here as the checklist itself. We also, I would just point out, and we don't have any questions yet, I would also point out that we have another program electronically. Most people that we have on here are on Account View now, which is the way you go on and view your account online for your daily balances, that sort of thing. Many of them are set up, and I have a question coming in here. Give me 1 second here. I'll finish this thought and I'll respond to this. We have a program on there called Wealth Vision, and they have a vault on there, and in that vault you can put a lot of this information in electronically. You can then share that. I mean, if something were to happen, you know, Bill, you were mentioning that you don't want to put the will in the
Safety deposit. Yeah.
You don't, and you want to have an original copy accessible. But prior to that, if you need a copy of that or the durable power of attorney or anything along those lines, you can store them electronically in the vault, as well as, you know, using the either a 3-ring binder system or something along those lines. And it was not a you've been interested in giving Lifefolio a try, Dave. Janice, we can get that to you. If anyone would like a copy of that, put something in the chat here, and I'd be happy to, or put it in the Q&A, because that, if you don't want to announce who you are, either one, and I can get that mailed out to you, or Jamie. Well, actually, it would be me because I have them, and Jamie's not here in Gurnee, is she? So, any other questions? Bill, what are some of the things that you've seen come from this? What's a best practice that you've seen with people using with this system? How do you best put it together?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing is to treat this as an inventory to kind of realize what you have and where it is. Dave, you and I spent some time in the military, and one thing that we learned was map reading. map reading 101, orient the map to the ground, find your location on the map, because if you don't know where you are, you can't get to where you're going. And that's really what this is you're sort of orienting yourself to what you have, taking this inventory and knowing where you are, because it's hard to move forward without knowing what you have and what you'd like to accomplish. So that's kind of one, is starting from that perspective. Another one is, and I probably mentioned this more than once, but engaging other family members, I think, is one of the biggest takeaways, if not the biggest takeaway. Engaging other family members in the conversation. So many family members don't have the proper documentation in place, like durable powers of attorney. And I know that a lot of people are thinking about, should I have this durable power of attorney in place for my parents? We know we've wanted to have this conversation, but we have not had this conversation. And I say, schedule it. So that is probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest takeaways, is facilitating those conversations with loved ones. And not reacting to problems, but being proactive in the approach.
Yeah, the communication, obviously.
Yes. Yeah.
And I will tell you, we have a number of participants here today, and they range the gamut from college students. We have some in their middle ages, and a number of retirees as well. So it runs the gamut here. There's no one particular age group that we're talking to today. One of the things I would just point out with this is, you mentioned earlier, Bill, that, we've got that sandwich generation here, where those folks in your 50s where you have two life events going on. I'm trying to juggle one, especially, and trying to juggle one with a career is hard enough. If you're trying to juggle two life events and you're in that sandwich generation, trying to take care of parents and children, what have you, it's the more organized you are, especially in that if it's the parents. For the folks who are younger in here, you may not see a need for the durable power of attorney for yourself, but making sure that your parents have that, because you will likely be, or your siblings will likely be, those caregivers when that time comes. And you're going to be needing those documents to make your life a lot easier in that time frame, in that time period. So.
I would only comment here, Dave. So someone that's 21 years old and they just graduated from college, they say, what do I need a durable power of attorney for? That I don't need that. Actually, you do. You need it. We've all experienced this, but in the event that something happens and you become incapacitated and you can no longer make your own decisions, the court would actually have to appoint your parents, assuming you're not married, would appoint your parents as your guardian. And then what happens is your parents have to go before the judge to say, this is what I'd like to do to care for my child. And they have to get the judge's okay in order for you, for them to take care of you. If we just have this simple document in place, we can take the court out of this and they can simply take care of you. We don't like to think that things happen, but they do happen every day. And Dave, I know you and I have been doing this for a long time, combined, we're knocking on 60 years of doing this together, very long time. And so we've experienced this, and there's nothing worse than talking to a parent and they say, well, let me see what the judge has to say. That's just, to me, like heartbreaking.
Yeah, and I've received those calls too, Bill, where I've had clients whose children have died in the middle of the night on a motorcycle accident or something along those lines, and it's tragic. And you get those calls, and what's the next thing that you do? How do you help them through that process? And anything that forewarned is forearmed, but if you have some of these things in place, it makes that transition, that reactionary period, much easier to go through.
And I don't mean to hog up the time. If somebody has a question, please. But one other thing that I would mention is, for you that are grandparents, or maybe that are going to be grandparents someday, making sure that your child, your adult child, actually has a will. naming a legal guardian for their child, and having the discussion about grandparents' rights. Grandparents' rights is a big issue. Sometimes grandparents take financial responsibility to help raise grandchildren. Having all this documentation in place is very, very important. So I would just put that out there as well for planning purposes.
Well, I don't see any other questions coming in. A number of folks have asked for the Lifefolios, and we can get those to you. We'll get those in the mail to you. And if you have any questions that you want to ask them on more of a one-on-one, feel free to reach out. I think pretty much everybody knows how to get to me. On top of that, if you have a question, okay, go ahead. Type that in if you would, Janice, please. We did have one additional question that came up here, and we'll get that here in just one second. But you know what? Chad, go ahead and type these in if you don't mind in the Q&A. It's your durable power of attorney. Would a married couple need a durable power of attorney? Bill, you want to hit that?
So does a married couple need a durable power of attorney?
Yes. Yeah.
So, well, number one, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to give you any legal advice. But yeah, I would say that they definitely both need a durable power of attorney in place. Again, not an attorney, but typically the spouse can care for, and so they may not need that. But if something happens to the spouse in there, then who's going to step in and take care of that? The other spouse. A lot of times they name children as durable powers of attorney, and really helping so if it's mom and dad has a stroke and he needs some help, so his wife could come in and help. That's not a problem. But having this durable power of attorney that maybe the daughter or the son can help to come in and help augment some of that. Again, I'm not an attorney. I'm not suggesting those things, but I think it's really important to have this in place. Everybody, in my personal opinion, should have these in place.
And I would agree with that, Bill. And again, not an attorney, can't give legal advice, but the one thing I would say with that, you still need, say, for example, a couple have IRAs, which are individual retirement accounts. You have no authority over that. If you need to draw some money from the spouse's IRA for one reason or another, and they're incapacitated, then we need to have that power of attorney in place. So yeah, my recommendation, have those. And then on top of that, you're going to want to put a contingent power on that as well. So if something happens and both of you are incapacitated, a lot of times this happens when they're elderly, Alzheimer's sets in, and then if you're equally yoked in that situation, the other is going to become incapacitated or has a problem making a decision. You're going to want that contingent on there. A lot of times it's not a child. If you don't have children or grandchildren to think of, maybe other relatives. I wouldn't do a sibling in that particular instance, because oftentimes they're younger or slightly younger or older than you, and they may be incapacitated. And if you've not updated that durable power of attorney in a recent time frame, that could become an issue. Look for someone younger, nieces, nephews, anything along those lines. But yeah, I would say that it is important to have those in place. So good. And I did have somebody raise their hand. I didn't see anything typed in. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead, and if I don't see anything else, we're just going to go ahead and call it here. But if you have any questions or concerns on what we went over, let me know. Reach out to me one-on-one. If you have a question for Bill, we can get you in touch with him as well. But Bill, thank you very much for your time today. Thank you all for your time. I hope you got something out of this, and we'll get those Lifefolios out to everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
You two still on?